Hello everyone. Today we are going to say about immunity. Okay? Immunity is resistance exhibited by the host towards the injury caused by the microorganisms and their products. So, it is a mechanism where the body exhibit resistance towards the injury caused by the microorganisms and their products. So, broadly, the immunity we can classify into innate immunity and acquired immunity. Okay, so innate immunity and acquired immunity, these are the two different classes of immunity. So, innate immunity means it is by it is inherited by birth. Okay, acquired means during the lifetime we will acquire through different situations. If we take innate immunity, we have specific and non-specific immunity. Uh, In that we have different categories like species specific, racial specific, and individual specific. If you come to acquired immunity, we have active and passive immunity. Under active immunity, we have natural active immunity, artificial active immunity, and passive immunity, we have natural, artificial, and combined passive immunity. Okay, we'll see one by one. So, under innate immunity, it is also called as native immunity. Okay, it provides the first line of defense against the infection. Okay, so means whenever the antigen or the microorganism is entering into the body will respond, right? Immediate action. That we call it as first line of defense, that is innate immunity. So, it is inherited by the genetic uh, inheritance, or we get through the genetic characteristics. Okay, the virtue of the genetic and constitutional mark makeup. Okay, so it is by birth we will get this innate immunity. Okay, so if resistance is specific to the concerned organ or concerned species or the pathogen, we call it as specific. If it is general means we call it as non-specific. Okay, so basically innate immunity is the first line of defense against the infection. Coming to species immunity, under innate immunity, it is resistance shown by the all members of same species. For example, all humans are unsusceptible to the plant and animal pathogen. Okay, so for example, if you take any disease, okay, for example, if you take areca nut, the cholera of areca nut, right? So it is infecting areca nut plant. It is not infecting the animals, or it is not infecting the human beings. If, for example, rabies is infecting the animal as well as the human, right? But it is not infecting plants. So it is like resistance shown by particular species. We call it as species immunity. Okay, racial immunity, under species we have different races, right? So if the particular race is showing resistant to a particular pathogen, we call it as racial immunity. Okay, resistance seen between the different races in a particular species. Within the species, if you say some differences in the races, then we call it as racial immunity. For example, some parts of Africa and Mediterranean coast are genetically resistant to Plasmodium falciparum. You know, right? Malaria, which infect the human beings. But some part of Africa and Mediterranean part people are, they are through by birth they are resistant to Plasmodium falciparum. Okay, due to their genetic virtue. Okay, so coming to the individual immunity, if you take the twins, right, identical twins, so resistance to microorganisms seen in the different individuals of the same races. So we are the human beings like the same races, right? Like Asian, or if you take Indian, we are through the same races. So we if you take consider siblings or one person in the family, right? So the virtue of the immunity is different. So resistance toward the microorganism is different between the individuals, right? So that we call it as individual immunity. So, what are the factors which affect the innate immunity? That is age, you know, right? Extreme ages like very young and very old are susceptible to the infection, and hormonal influence. For example, if you have any hormonal imbalance, diabetes mellitus or endocrine disorders or hypothyroidism, so steroids level will be elevated, right? So they are prone for the infection. And nutrition, if the malnutrition or if you have any uh, like nutrition deficient condition, both humoral and cell mediated immunity is reduced. Okay, so you can see in the Mantox test. So mechanism, if you take, you have like first line of defense, you have skin, respiratory tract, there is nose, gastrointestinal tract, right? The HCl which is present in the gastrointestinal tract. We have so many first line of defense mechanism, and we have so many antibacterial substances in the blood and body tissues, right? Then inflammation and fever. So coming to the physical barriers like epithelial surfaces, so which the skin and mucous membrane, right, which protect the penetration of the microorganism inside the body. So skin, healthy skin possesses the bactericidal activity, bactericidal which kill the bacteria. So presence of high salt content, oil, and the hair which is present on the skin will trap the microorganisms. Okay, so then we have the respiratory tract. So we have this flushing action by coughing and sneezing. Okay, so hairs which is present in the nose will trap the microorganisms, and we sneeze and we cough, right? So this will act as a reflect action for the flushing of the microorganism which enter the body. Okay, then we have gastrointestinal tract. So we have HCl, right? The acidic pH of the stomach will kill the microorganism. Then we have conjunctiva. So we have lysosomal enzymes which has the antibacterial activity. And genitourinary tract, we have lactic acid, and spermine and zinc which is present in the semen have the antibacterial activity. So these are the first line of defense. You can see saliva, tears, mucus lining, and gut bacteria, acidic pH of the stomach. So these are all act as a first line of defense. Coming to the acquired immunity, also called as adaptive immunity. So it is resistance shown by the individual, or it is acquired during the lifetime. So that's why we call it as acquired immunity or adaptive immunity. Okay, so during the lifetime from the birth to the death, so we come in contact with different types of microbes, right? So microorganisms or the antigens, right? So for that our body will act, so that by that action we produces antibody, in response to that we act, right? So we gain a immunity power, that is we call it as adaptive or acquired immunity. So we have active immunity and passive immunity. So under active immunity we have naturally acquired and artificially acquired. Passive immunity we have naturally acquired passive immunity and artificially acquired passive immunity. So active immunity, we have primary response and secondary response. Primary response means first encounter of the pathogen. For example, first time your body is come in contact with any infection like chicken pox or corona or anything. Okay, so when it encounter for the first time and it is acting, we call it as primary immune response. And secondary immune response, the same antigen should come in contact again after recovery and 3-4 months time period. If it is coming again same pathogen, then we call it as secondary immune response. Okay, natural active immunity is you get the infection, repeated apparent infection, and body will produces the antibody naturally, so that we call it as natural active immunity. Example, chicken pox. When it infect, like measles will infect, so it provide the lifelong immunity. Okay, coming to the artificial active immunity, so where you will take the vaccine. So vaccine is nothing but the antigen. It is in a live attenuated or killed form you are taking. Body will recognize it as an antigen and it will produces the antibody. So the difference is, here you are going to take it. Okay, in natural active immunity, naturally you will come in contact with the antigen and the body will produces the antibody. Artificial active immunity, you are going to take the antigen, you are going to introduce it in a live or killed or attenuated form, and your body will recognize it and it will produces the antibody. So it is induced by the vaccine. So vaccine, you know, right, it is a substances used to generate the active immunity. So if you take the property of good vaccine, it should be long lasting, it should have a self storage power, like shelf life should be longer, memory should be there. Memory means if you encounter any antigen, it should act immediately, right? So memory should be there and it should be very safe and efficient. Okay, so we have different types of vaccine. So live attenuated vaccine, killed vaccine, subunit vaccine, toxoid vaccine, and recombinant vaccine. Okay, so if you take the example for the bacterial vaccine, we have BCG, which is given for prevention of TB, and we have cholera vaccine, we have typhoid vaccine, and you know TT, right? That is tetanus toxoid. It is all comes under the bacterial vaccine. If you take viral vaccine example, you have oral polio vaccine, which is we call it as Sabin, and killed we call it as SAC, that is injectable polio vaccine, and we have hepatitis B vaccine. Coming to passive immunity, passive means the resistance that is transmitted to the patient or the recipient in a ready-made form. So basically, you are going to take antibody from the third person. In active immunity, what was happening, like natural active immunity and the artificial active immunity, your body is coming in contact with the antigen, your body only synthesizing the antibody, right? So in passive immunity, third party or some other uh, host is giving the antibody in the ready made form. Okay, so that's why there is no memory here, there is no antigenic stimulus phase, or there is no negative phase here. Okay, so you have natural passive immunity where the resistance is transferred from the mother to baby. So you know, right? So the first maternal antibody, which is IgG, transmitted through the placenta. And the human colostrum, breast milk, has IgA, which provides the resistance to the intestinal digestion. Artificial passive immunity, if you take, so here uh, those who can't produce the antibody like naturally, so will inject the antibody in the ready made form, that we call it as artificial passive immunity, transferred to the recipient by the administration of the ready made antibody. Example, when the patient is having tetanus infection, clostridium tetani infection, so tetanus antisera will be injected, so this antibody is produced in the horse and the antibody is filtered and given to the human. Okay, so you have differences between active and passive immunity here, so you can read it out. Okay, so the very important thing is immunization schedule. Okay, we have national immunization schedule here. Okay, so at birth we'll be giving BCG intradermally, and during course of time we have polio vaccine, then DPT, then DPT means diphtheria, pertussis, and tetanus, then we have measles vaccine, booster dose at a different intervals, and pregnant women will be giving the tetanus toxoid 3 doses. Okay, 2 doses at the pregnancy. If vaccinated 3 years later, we'll be giving the booster dose. Okay, so in this video we have seen about immunity, types of immunity, and little note on the vaccine and national immunization schedule. Hope you like the video. If you have any queries or any doubt, you can comment below. Okay, thank you.